Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Geonetrics November webinar. This is an encore presentation of Winning at the Web, roundtable discussion with Modern Healthcare's Website of the Year winners. This session was given last week as part of Modern Healthcare's 2020 Strategic Marketing Conference. So while we wait for a few more people who are still logging in, I will go over our usual housekeeping items. Next month's webinar is all about design. And we'll be specifically looking at design through the patient journey lens, talking about how to deliver a seamless digital experience for your visitors. You'll also get help figuring out whether your organization might benefit from a full rebrand, a visual rebrand, or just a brand refresh. And if those terms sound pretty interchangeable, you might want to consider heading on over to geonetric.com/webinars to get signed up. Next up, the results of the 2020 Healthcare Digital Marketing Trends Survey are ready for download. Created in partnership with eHealthcare Strategy and Trends, this research helps healthcare marketers like you benchmark your organization against almost 200 of your peers, get the data you need to make decisions, and see how digital leaders invest differently in everything from staff to tactics. So again, you can download your copy by visiting geonetric.com/2020 ebook. Today's webinar will run a little bit over an hour. If you're listening on a speakerphone, we recommend you mute your line to prevent audio quality issues. If you have questions, please enter those in the GoToWebinar platform, and we will do our best to address them during the broadcast, or we'll follow up with you as needed. We depend on your feedback to make our webinars the best they can be, so please take a moment to complete the survey at the end of the webinar. And finally, a recording of this presentation will be posted on geonetric.com in the Ideas section, as well as emailed out with the slide deck. Before we hear from our healthcare marketing panel, we'll turn things over to Ben Dillon, Chief Strategy Officer at Geonetric, to kick us off. Ben?
Thanks very much, and thanks to everyone for joining us. We have a very exciting program today as we highlight back-to-back Website of the Year award winners from Modern Healthcare, and look at how their case studies represent how digital is moving and what leaders are doing to really help themselves excel in digital marketing in healthcare. Our three panelists today are Lindsay Myers, Vice President of Public Relations from Avera Health, Patrick Kane, the Senior Vice President for Marketing Communications and Business Development for Cape Cod Healthcare, and Matt McKinney, Assistant Director of Digital Engagement at Cone Health. Glad that you all were able to join us today. Before we enter those case studies, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing across the board for digital marketing in healthcare. And this information comes out of the 2020 Healthcare Digital Marketing Trends Survey. This is a survey put on by Geonetric. It's our 10th survey over the course of about 15 years. It's an annual-ish survey. And you can get more of this data at geonetric.com/MH for Modern Healthcare /MH. So let's dive into the data. Our first theme here, we're going to look at how things are a little different for leaders than for everyone else. And our first theme as we look at that is that content is king. When we look at so many of the things that make for great digital marketing, it's social and email and personalization and SEO, digital advertising, all of those things require content, the constant feeding of content. So organizations that have a really powerful engine for creating that content and creating content that's really good, that's really effective, makes everything else that they're doing from a digital marketing perspective easier and more effective. I think of it as the tide that lifts all boats. Just where we're seeing this in the data, a couple of examples. We have a list of functional areas. We ask a whole bunch of questions across the survey. And one of the areas that we ask is just how are you doing compared to competitors? And we use that data then to split the respondents into leaders or average organizations or laggards based on how they respond to this question. as we look at the places where organizations across the board are doing really, really well, feel like they're doing really, really well, we have social media, we have video production, website management, accessibility, and digital advertising. When we look at the other end of the spectrum, where organizations feel like they're struggling, internet, CRM, marketing automation, mobile app development are all areas where healthcare organizations feel like they're struggling. Now, the overall numbers like that are interesting, but sometimes we get our greatest insights when we dig into just what, say, leaders are doing. So as we look at where leaders are really excelling here, if we can advance. Thank you. So leaders, like everyone, feel like they're doing really great from a social media and community management perspective. But they also feel like they're doing really well in areas like content development and search engine optimization, things that are very content intensive. And you can also see that the areas where leaders feel like they excel are very different than where organizations overall feel like they excel within the group. Now, the other place that we look that often gives us some interesting insights is the delta, the gap. Essentially, we look at the leader score minus the laggard score. And when we look at that view of things, we see that content development is an area where leaders really very strongly outperform everyone else by almost 2 full points. And again, this is scored on a -2 to +2 scale. So that's a huge difference that leaders feel like they outperform on content. They also outperform on content marketing, on SEO, again, another very content intensive area, and then on digital strategy, which is a theme we'll see throughout this as well. So content really, really important to the leadership that leaders have as they're doing digital marketing. When we look next at staffing, again, same list, just sorted in a little different order based on how things scored. This is how many FTEs organizations have in each of these discipline areas. And everyone has a lot of folks in website management, but leaders actually have the most staff committed to content development. And again, when we look at that gap, leaders have the largest number of additional staff above and beyond what the other groups have in this area, almost a full FTE more than the laggard cohort. So here again is an area where from a staffing perspective, we see that same information coming through, that content really important in an area of significant investment for leaders in the space. Our next theme here is experience and engagement for leaders is more important than strictly financial measures of success. And that's not to say that financial measures of success aren't important to leaders. They're measuring ROI, they're doing a lot of those things, but those financial measures lag. And particularly in our industry, they lag. And so it's very difficult to manage to the financial measures of success. It's very difficult to iterate if you're just looking at those financial measures of success. And leaders instead feel like if they can do experience and engagement really well, that's going to lead to those measures. As we look at the data that sort of reinforces this, we asked about goals. And this year we had sort of an interesting twist, patient acquisition. Patient acquisition is usually somewhere in the top 5. This year, it leapt to the top, and it leapt to the top by a really wide margin. Now, granted, we delayed doing data collection because of COVID and the pandemic crisis. We were doing a lot of this data collection in July, where I think filling schedules was particularly top of mind. But we feel like filling schedules, patient acquisition, bringing patients in for services has been and is going to continue to be really particularly important in the coming year as well. Now, that's true overall, but when we look at leaders, it turns out that patient acquisition is kind of in the top pack there, but it's not actually number 1. It's not even number 2, right? Consumer engagement, consumer awareness are rated just a smidge more important than patient acquisition. Consumer experience just slightly behind. Leaders really feel like that relentless focus on consumer experience and creating great experiences for digital consumers that engage with the brand is their pathway to overall success. Now we contrast that with our average cohort. Average cohort, yes, patient acquisition is number 1, but numbers 2, 3, and 4 are ROI, revenue, and profitability. Very different mix of priorities there. And again, this is, I think, indicative of organizations that are having to defend their budgets right now, having to make the case that every dollar they spend is bringing those dollars in a very direct way. It may also indicate for some organizations some challenges around credibility and trust with executive leadership here as well. It seems like leaders have maybe earned that trust over time and can focus on what's right for the consumer first and foremost in that arrangement. Our next theme is that leaders tend to be ahead of the game on the marketing technology stack. And it's easy to think that leaders maybe aren't investing in this area or still have a long way to go. They probably do. They probably feel like they have a long way to go. Because when we look at their overall ratings, again, this is that same performance by functional area, the areas where they feel least good about what they're doing, what they're bringing to the table right now are areas like analytics and CRM and marketing automation and mobile app development, all things that fall into sort of that perennial tech stack kind of arrangement. However, although they don't feel great relative to the other things they're doing, when we compare how they feel about those areas as leaders compared to everyone else, it's some of the areas where we see some of the biggest gaps there. They're outperforming the laggards and the average by a wide margin in those areas, analytics, CRM, marketing automation, and particularly strongly there in mobile app development. Now, when we look at the dollar, we see some similar patterns, not all exactly the same, but I think there is this good question of where are leaders investing right now? And the answer tends to be in the areas of strategy and findability. When we look at staffing, this is a chart that looks at the sort of net increase in staffing. What percent of organizations are looking to increase staff in a particular discipline minus those that are looking to decrease staff in a particular discipline. And when we look at some of those key tech stack items, marketing automation, CRM, we see actually leaders, very small numbers there in terms of folks increasing staff. These are areas where leaders have often been focused over the last few years, and while they still have a long way to go in those disciplines, they're not necessarily looking to invest more or hire more people there. They kind of have already staffed those areas up, although they're still maybe not as mature as they'd like to be and not as good as they'd like to be in executing in those tools with those staff today. They are looking to do some investment in areas of mobile app development and analytics. But when we look at the areas where leaders are investing the most, those areas are really digital advertising, again, bringing eyeballs in to engage, digital strategy, something that we're seeing with leaders above and beyond everyone else, trying to figure out how they are going to move forward and what the plans are around that. And then some of those other tech stack items like mobile app development and analytics to some extent. We're still seeing growth there. SEO is another area of pretty significant growth. So again, a lot on how do we bring people in to engage them, as well as this idea of digital strategy being a strong priority. We see some similarities in the pattern when we look at the non-staff investment. So again, this is investing in tools or outside services. Digital advertising is the area of largest growth. More than 36% of organizations, they're saying that they're going to increase their spend in that area. Video production, not something we saw on the other one, but an interesting data point there. But business listing management, again, how do we engage consumers and bring them to us? And digital strategy being a big area of continued investment there as well. It's hard to talk about trends and things going on without at least touching on the pandemic. And we did ask a couple questions specifically here, as well as seeing some data percolate out of some of the questions that we've asked year after year because of what's going on with the pandemic in healthcare right now. And that is something that's hit every organization in healthcare, although not in entirely the same way. So that's what's not different. Now, what is different is how organizations are choosing to respond to the pandemic crisis as they're bouncing out of it right now. And we're seeing some very big differences there. And we're seeing some different patterns in the way leaders are approaching this from everyone else. We'll start by looking at the overall marketing budget. And again, we've been tracking this over about a 15-year period, 10 surveys over 15 years. A 41% decrease, or 41% of organizations, I should say, decreasing their overall marketing budget is just unprecedented. We've seen ups and downs. We've never seen anything that looks remotely like the number of organizations that are tightening budgets in this area this year. Now, leaders are the group that are least likely to be decreasing their budget from an overall marketing perspective. They're also the least likely to be increasing their budget from an overall marketing perspective. All in all, about 1 in 10 organizations are increasing their overall marketing spend. But again, 40%, 41% are decreasing their overall marketing spend this year. Really an incredible change from what we've seen in any previous year. Now, that's the overall marketing budget. Now let's look at the digital marketing budget. Now, as we've seen in a lot of previous years, the general trend to invest in digital marketing is stronger than overall marketing. And it's just that shift of dollars from traditional media to digital media. So the overall marketing budget might be holding steady, digital marketing budget might be increasing, or those different patterns appearing here. Now, when we look at how leaders are performing here, very few leaders, less than 1 in 10, are decreasing their digital marketing budgets, but there are some. And almost 40 or more than 45% are increasing their digital marketing spend this year. When we look across the board, though, at the organizations cutting, we're still seeing more than 1 in 5 respondents saying their digital marketing budgets are going to be cut. And again, for context, we, over the years that we've done this, have never seen more than a handful of organizations out of the few hundred responses that we get a year indicating a cut to these budgets. And usually those are when we dig into it, are organizations where they've done huge projects and they've staffed up and they've increased budget significantly. And in subsequent years, they just recognize that they're not going to have the same levels of staff and spending sort of on an ongoing basis. This is a very different pattern that we're seeing here in the number of organizations cutting. But still, we do see almost 40% of organizations indicating that they are increasing, almost 40% indicating that digital marketing budgets are holding steady. So it's in a much better position than the overall marketing budget, but still tightening of belts is happening across the board here. We also asked a couple of questions specifically about how the pandemic was impacting marketing initiatives, digital marketing initiatives, and digital transformation initiatives. And this is digital marketing initiatives. We were really getting mixed messages from our clients across the industry. And we wanted to see if there was a general trend. And the answer is we're in a couple of different boats here. We do have, again, more than 41% of organizations saying, hey, we have put the brakes on some digital marketing initiatives. Maybe we've canceled things, maybe we've delayed things. But we're also seeing almost a third saying, you know what, this has actually lit a fire under our organization. And we're getting serious. We're increasing our investment. We're going after things that had not been on our roadmap at the beginning of the year. So we do have a mixed bag, a little more to the cancel and delay side than the add or accelerate side. But we do have a very big mix, depending on both how organizations were impacted by the pandemic, I should say, as well as how committed they are and what they see as the potential for some of these digital marketing initiatives going forward. I should also point out the purple wedges in both of these charts are unsure, and that unsure, when we look at the verbose answers, are really, it's a mix. So it's more of a reprioritization than necessarily adding or removing. So that's digital marketing. As we look at digital transformation initiatives, similar picture, slightly different percentages here, a slightly smaller percentage that's canceling or delaying initiatives, but still 35%, still a solid third saying that they're increasing or accelerating digital transformation initiatives. And a lot of folks, 17%, in that we're shuffling the priorities bucket there. So different organizations looking at this, and we are seeing both the accelerating and the slowing down depending on the organization and their specific situation. So a lot of different ways that that's being interpreted out there, and a lot of different ways organizations are handling that as well. I'll hand things over to Lindsay from Avera Health.
Thank you, Ben. I'm excited to be with you all today virtually. Thank you for having me. I'm going to just tell you briefly about Avera Health as an organization. So we are an integrated delivery system, which means we have everything from 2 health plans all the way through to lots of long-term care beds in the Midwest. And we cover a 5-state region, which is about 72,000 square miles, if you can imagine that, for those of you from highly urban areas, which is about 86 counties for us. And just under 1 million people live in that area. We're a health ministry of the Benedictine and Presentation Sisters. And so I've never known more than during a pandemic what it means to be part of an integrated delivery system, and been more thankful for having all of the work and all of the foresight that the Presentation and Benedictine Sisters had so many years ago to build this, and I am getting to reap the rewards of it this year during the pandemic time. We have about 18,000 employees and just about 1,200 to our medical group. And we also have one of the nation's most robust telemedicine system, which was born out of our rural roots and the large footprint that we need to treat within our health system. So Ben asked me to tell you what made us award-winning, which is a complicated question. So I'm going to show you a very non-digital slide and share with you that our old website just needed a revamp. And it wasn't that we didn't have a great team of people working on it. It was that the organization probably structurally was not ready for what we needed to build. So when we felt, I've been with Avera about 14 years now, when we felt the organization was ready, we needed a revolution, not an evolution for our website. And so this is actually our wall of very non-digital ways that we used as a teaching tool to show people all of the cheese that we needed to move to change our website. Jill Jensen with Geonetric is a saint. She came and helped us to put our entire website on a wall because it was so difficult for us to theoretically explain to people all of the changes that we were going to make. But they needed to happen. And so this was a very important component to us to both teach not only our marketing team how these changes were going to impact their work, but also our clinical teams, how consumers were now going to be able to find things. Our old website had over 9,000 pages, so it was like a house that had been added onto time and time again. And traffic was falling off after the first 10% of pages. And as a marketer, I was very shocked to find out that our baby pictures from our birthing centers were one of the most popular items that people were finding on our website. That is not really where I wanted to be driving traffic to. So that drastically needed to change with the new website. So we really did a huge research, fact-finding mission for about a year before we went into our redesign, so that we had all of the research to back the changes that we needed to make. And that was a key importance to us, to be able to move our leaders in the right direction, because as clinicians in healthcare, we love research and we love statistical information. And so we really took a deep dive into that so that we had all of the right things in place, so that when we relaunched Avera.org, everyone was behind us. They knew the reasons we were doing this and why we needed to make this change. So I'm going to share with you our new website. We relaunched in 2016, and we won the Modern Healthcare Award in 2017. So that was a great bolster to the work that we had done. It validated all of the hard work and decisions our team had made, and it was very rewarding for us. So what we really needed to do was change our approach to how our consumers were looking for things on the website. We needed to make finding a physician easier. We needed that to work with our location services, of which there are many across our footprint. And we needed that to also work in conjunction with our health services, so that when you find a service that you're looking for through Google, you're able to see the physicians that practice and treat patients in that service and the locations where you can find those things at. In addition, we needed to be able to more easily offer people the task-based items that they were largely coming to our website to do. So I'm proud to tell you that getting into their electronic medical record is one of the top things that people are doing now on Avera.org, which is exactly, as a marketer, where we want people to be. They're also paying bills online. They're finding physicians. They're finding locations. So now our search actually mirrors what we want people to be doing on our website. We needed a fresh, clean, relevant new design, and we needed to tie together those services, locations, and physicians. So I'm going to share with you a little bit more about how we got there. We needed to have flexible pages that we were able to hold up a lot of local folks on. We have 6 regions that were largely spread across. And so those regions needed to be able to see and feel that they were part of this website, and that everything was not just pointing towards our bigger tertiary hospital. And so we created these beautiful service level pages on Avera.org. And in addition, we also built out great campaign pages, because sometimes the call to action needs to be a little bit different. And our campaign pages, we don't have those last forever. They last for a period of time and they're taken down. So one key piece that I would give as advice if you're thinking about doing a web revamp is to really build your governance out first before you go into any redesign. That governance helps to lead everything that we do with our website, and we're able to go back to those rules that we've built and to say, this is why we made this decision and this is why we need to stick to this, or to figure out if there's areas you need to be more flexible on. As we went through and redesigned Avera.org, we also found that we needed a place for storytelling. We did not want to go back to being that house with 9,000 pages. And so we needed to be able to hold up our storytelling in a different way. So we actually went to Geonetric and we said, we want to build a health hub. And at first, I'm sure they thought we were crazy and it was just impossible to scope because there were so many different ideas. But we did calls with health systems all over the United States, some of which were doing very, very good work around a health hub. We were early adopters in health blogs. We've actually had a health blog for well over a decade at Avera. But in the past, it was built on a WordPress page that just was not flexible for what we wanted to do. And so we came to Geonetric with a really, really big idea. And we said, we want our health hub and our storytelling site to tie in and integrate fully with our Avera.org website. We wanted to work with our services, our locations, and our physicians who are blogging. And so that's exactly what we built. And storytelling can drastically impact your SEO. Before, when we had so much redundant content, when people were just throwing whatever they wanted to on the old Avera.org, we were pushed down and pushed down. And sometimes we were showing up on page 14 or 15 of Google, which is not where you want to be for your services. Who goes to page 14 or 15? And so we were able to turn that around. And now our services are showing up as search 1, 2, or 3 on the first page of Google as people are looking. So the storytelling really made a big difference when we can tie our blogs into our services and our locations. And so to give you an example, we did a blog a couple of years ago. We had a breast cancer physician who is very well-spoken, and she had a conversation with me in the hallway and shared with me that she carries some little pebbles around in her pocket to be able to show her patients what breast cancer feels like. And so we wrote a blog on this topic to be able to share with a broader audience how this physician was using that as a teaching tool. And that today is one of the top searches in the United States. When you search for what does breast cancer feel like, it generates about 12,000 visits to our blog every month. And so it's just a little juggernaut. And over time, it's grown that it actually has over 250,000 page views to date. So, I mean, it can happen even with a local blog, and you can build that SEO in. Another one that we just did this year was on strep throat, a simple concept. We almost didn't do the blog because it was so simple, but it's actually generated 100,000 page views, and 97% of that traffic is organic. So people are finding us in new ways than they ever have before. So our blog strategy is that nothing ever just lives on balance until we build enough of a following to really have that make sense. So I would recommend that as you look at content planning and you look at that strategy, that you consider really having a channel for it. And so this is an example of a social media post for COVID. This was about antibody testing. We had an organic, we knew we needed an organic post. We were running an ad campaign, and it was actually performing well, but we were getting a ton of questions through to our social media team from those ads. And so we actually shut off those ads and started boosting a blog instead that had those frequently asked questions. And that was a much, much better strategy for our team to answer those questions in a simple manner for people. COVID-19, obviously, if we talk about content strategy, we can't help but talk about the pandemic that we're currently in. So this had to, we needed to drastically change our strategy back in February when COVID cases started happening around Avera. And so we started a COVID page, and we were actually able to pull in smart panels and tag through taxonomy on our blog, the COVID blogs we were doing, and pull those in through smart panels to our COVID-19 page, which was a great asset to us because we have some wonderful toolkits that our patient education team was producing that needed to be held up to the general public. We did a blog on influenza versus COVID, and that's had over 260,000 page views. 92% of that is organic. So storytelling, I firmly believe during this pandemic has saved lives. We find, and not just because of the marketing team, I know I have an excellent clinical team standing behind me doing that work, but our death rate from COVID is about 4% lower than the national average. And I have to attribute at least a small bit of that to the storytelling that we did to identify symptoms early. We set up a 1-800 number within days of the pandemic hitting, and that way people were able to find those services in an easy manner. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself and talking about what this foundation, what a difference it made during the pandemic, but it's hard not to talk about that as storytellers today. So I'll share with you that having this early investment in a digital foundation has really paid off for us. It's helped us to have a content team in place that has a very solid foundation of doing content planning. We use the COPE method where we create once, publish everywhere. And so that really helped us a lot with our research pages, our resource pages. We were also last year launched in a clothesline with Geonetric because we have so many winter weather closures. Thank goodness we had that during COVID because that allowed us to easily toggle on and off as we're closing clinics. We also work with Yext as a partner for our location directory, and so that helped us to get that out to our Google sources as well. We also have our intranet through Geonetric, and so these resources have really tied together in a way that we could have never imagined before for COVID, where you have external information that the public needs, and then you have your internal information, which can share with our employees anything about the proper PPE and all the changing precautions that happened early in this pandemic, all the way through to how to have lunch safely in the workplace and things like that. So it's really two different audiences, but we could take a lot of our content and just adjust it so that it could be used for one or the other. We have email pushes that push towards our intranet. We push out information about COVID. We're now doing it twice a week. Early on in the pandemic, it was 7 days a week, and we have seen open rates of about 300% pretty consistently from those emails where people are sharing it and opening it more than once. This is one of our blogs that we had, if you'll advance, during COVID, was on influenza, COVID, allergies, and the common cold. This is such a common question. This actually came from our internal communications team who developed this blog. And so they made this beautiful content, and we shared it actually externally on Balance later on. We shared it with employees because we were getting this question a lot. But this has generated over 100,000 page views, and most of that traffic has been organic for us also. And it's seen a lot of national traffic right now because it's such a hot topic where people can't differentiate between what they have at this point. So I will share a little bit about what's next with our team because we need to always be thinking ahead. But what I would say is that we continue to work on our content strategy and working both with our internal teams and what we can take external and vice versa. We want to leverage our patient education and our clinical data as much as we can right now, especially with the pandemic going on around us. But we're still focusing. We started an intranet project to help with the search and the experience for our employees, and we're continuing down that path as well. We're not stopping that work right now because we know it's critically important for our internal teams. And we've really adopted a continuous improvement mentality with digital. Once you have a mobile-friendly website, to continue to improve in little ways constantly rather than doing huge revamps, we've found has helped to keep us on track. We're also going to work this year on patient experience and reputation, as I imagine most marketers are. But I will hand it back to Ben to continue on. Thank you.
Yes, and next up we have Patrick Kane from Cape Cod Healthcare.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Nice to be with everyone today. Want to talk briefly about Cape Cod Healthcare. We're an hour south of Boston. We're on a peninsula that's 60 miles long in the North Atlantic, the only healthcare system. We compete with Brigham and Women, Mass General, Dana-Farber. So it's a very competitive market. We have 250,000 year-round residents. And in summertime, our population goes up to about 700,000. We've got 5,700 employees. We were on track to do $1 billion in revenue until the pandemic hit. I think we're going to be in about $950 million a year, or $950 million in net patient revenue. We've got 2 hospitals, some skilled nursing facilities, and altogether 13 business units in Cape Cod Healthcare. We've got about a 71% inpatient market share. And interestingly enough, our payer mix is about 71% Medicare. So we need a website. Everyone needs a website. So what made us award winning? Well, first of all, the foundation of what a website is has to be a given. Dependable technology, good design, easy navigation, optimized, beautiful visuals, ranked content in terms of what people are looking for. So all the fundamental pieces of a top tier site are what we started with, and our content management system, particularly VitalSite from Geo, really is that system, that foundation that provides us with all the fundamental 101 elements of a good, dependable website. And as we began our redesign, this is a Cape Cod Healthcare 3.0. As we began our redesign, we knew we had a stable platform, a flexible platform, and a highly advanced platform. And so it gave us a big palette, if you will, for some creativity. So we set up some goals, some tracking, the fundamentals again. But we also moved separately before we did this redesign into brand journalism, brand publishing, and this content has proven to be really valuable. We're going to talk about that. The other thing we've noticed too is as healthcare has evolved, the pandemic's a great example of that. You really have to evolve yourselves, and your platform has to have the flexibility to do so. So what made us award-winning? It's storytelling. The brand journalism site is called Cape Cod Health News. We originally put it up on WordPress, and now we've been able to integrate it with this rebuild and this website, right into our website, right onto our platform, right in the CMS. Our brand journalism is written by former newspaper reporters, so it has a journalistic content, not a sales and marketing content. They're really good writers, and I honestly believe the writing has been the true brand strength of the brand journalism. So we run it like a newspaper. We send out 36,000 emails every Tuesday, and we've got a subscription list. But more importantly, it also gives us a way to tie it in. So when we send out 3 or 4 stories that we get based on current events, we always put our docs up front. Then once the news feed, that's an email that goes out, it lives in what we call the news hub. And the news hub is on the website. But just like Lindsay and Avera, we're able to tie in through smart panels, the physicians, the Cape Cod Health News stories, and the service lines. So we've got a cross-pollination between what would be traditional web traffic, traditional web viewing, and then our news feed tying back to our news hub, tying back to our web. And it's been really great, particularly with SEO. People are Googling certain things for Cape Cod Healthcare. Again, we're competing against Boston. So we need to put our docs up who are featured in the stories because most of them were trained there. And we need to be on cutting edge in terms of the latest and the greatest. And Cape Cod Health News' secret sauce is most stories are generated from research studies that are released. So we'll take a research study. We'll talk to our doc. For example, there was a research study that men who are non-smokers have better clinical outcomes in hip and knee replacement. So we go right to one of our orthos, show him the study. He talks about the study. We link to it, tied to our ortho line, and then we push it out on social. So it's been really good that we have a website with the strength and flexibility to be able to do that. And we're in year 5 of our brand journalism site. And it's probably the most effective tool I've used in my many years in this business. So again, I mentioned one of the things that happens with the website is you got to have flexibility. So COVID, right? Everybody has their COVID stories. But for us, we're the experts on community health on this peninsula here. And so people turn to us. And we decided early on to build out a complete COVID section of the website. And we set it up, and you can see what it is, the usual information, testing information, links to CDC. Right away early, we decided we were going to use 2 sources of truth. That was going to be CDC and Massachusetts Department of Health. So that eliminated a lot of chatter that came in from other sources. Despite some of the shortcomings of CDC that we know now, but that's another story for another day. So those were our sources of truth. But what really helped us was Cape Cod Health News. People turned to us because they trust us, and we did over 45 COVID stories for Cape Cod Health on Cape Cod Health News that we tied back to this COVID site, and they featured our physicians. And I'll show you the stats in a minute, but the emails were phenomenal. It was a great outlet. It was a great way to inform our community. We could do it faster than the local newspaper. We're more trustworthy than the local newspaper. And our customers, afterward, we did a survey, and our customers found us to be the most credible source of COVID news in their world, which was really great to hear. We used emails. Other thing we did is there's VitalSite has a crawl technique. I think maybe, Lindsay, you mentioned you might use that for the winter. We used it for COVID so that anywhere you landed on our website, you could get access to COVID easily. We had testing directions, policies for testing, very controversial. Early on, we were the first in the state to set up drive-through testing. Word got out, and people were flocking to the Cape from other parts of the state. And so it got a little dicey on testing CCHD patients versus non-patients, and we had to use the website to skillfully set up that criteria. We also partnered with the county, Barnstable County, and in true New England fashion, as an aside, there is the village of Barnstable, which is in the town of Barnstable, which is in the county of Barnstable. So it's truly a New England phenomenon. But we partnered with Barnstable County Department of Health, and they had a heat map that we developed with the local planning commission, and we were able to put that on the site. So between the county and Cape Cod, the county Department of Health and Cape Cod Healthcare, everything was driven to our website or the counties, and it had phenomenal results. So we had 22 content pages. Those are the 46 stories that we saw overall, and you can see here from these stats, we were the source of truth. In the peninsula of 225,000 people, these numbers, tell us that we were able to use our website, use our news site, use the flexibility of the website to put out important community message. Since we are the leaders lead, and this shows us that we did in terms of educating our constituents and our public. It was just phenomenal. And in particular, you can see 250,000 views of those 46 COVID stories. Just really, really phenomenal for us. And, it evolved as we went on. Everybody wanted to donate food, right? So we had to put out specs for that. There was a group that wanted to donate PPE. We were able to use Cape Cod Health News to push that out, how to do it. We were able to work with the county, as I mentioned, not only on the stats, but also as things changed, as protocols, clinical protocols, et cetera, changed. The website was flexible enough for us to be able to quickly change things, quickly update things, publish a Cape Cod Health News story, drive it back to the news hub, put it on the web, and in real time, sometimes twice a day. So the technology in the web was phenomenal. Also, its flexibility. We went to an internal newsletter. Previously, we had mailed to the homes, employees' homes 4 times a year, and as technology has advanced, the printing, postage, etc., we moved to a digital platform. We put it right on Vital Site using our web and using the same concept as Cape Cod Health News, only for our internal audiences. Converting to this from the printing and mailing costs gave us a 1.5 year payback. Always easy to get money from the boss when you got a short payback like that. And we also were able to, so we launched Pulse. It comes out monthly. It's laid out, as you can see on the screen, by different areas and services and milestones. We are CCHD, in the know, just for fun, wellness, patients first, and neighbors helping neighbors. It's been phenomenal for us to grow, and the open rates and click-through rates have grown substantially. We're at 39%. We're going live with Epic on Saturday morning, actually, and we had a special Epic Pulse. So we were able to do special editions, and it was basically introducing MyChart to our 5,700 employees who are going to be selling MyChart to our patients and activating in some other Epic. And that, as of yesterday, had a 49% open rate. So being able to use our website and our integration of our news hub and taking the same concepts and applying it to our internal newsletter that goes to not only the 5,700 employees, it also goes to 2,000 auxilians and volunteers, board of trustees, and also 3,000 foundation donors, potential donors, and friends of the hospital. It was really a plus for us. We also, for the first time in Cape Cod history, launched a complete women's health service line. 5 sub-brands. We interviewed 87 people, every physician, NP, PA, and others who are involved in women's health. And we built out a sub-site of women's health. We have a year-long mass media and digital advertising campaign running. We're driving to the web pages, and if you can see on the screen here, there's a form we call it FAUX, F-A-U-X, scheduling. So a woman wants to schedule a mammogram. She says Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, Thursday, hit send, scheduler calls her, they get it scheduled. So we're driving traffic. You can see at the bottom, it pulls in the physician profiles, and also you can see at the bottom all the Cape Cod Health News stories about women's services are also pulled into the women's section. And just after our launch, we had 800 users for the breast care page, 700 users for downloaded a pregnancy app, and a request for more information and appointments. 32% of the people who went to the page used it. So again, the flexibility of the website, all contained on a single content management system, helped and was very flexible. Also, as I mentioned, we're going to Epic. We built an Epic microsite for our employees. There were a lot of questions about building it on which side of the firewall. We chose to build it outside of the firewall with a general password. And the reason we did is our intranet is a SharePoint site that needs work, which wasn't going to get it as Epic. So we were able to build our our employee Epic microsite right on the same platform. And it's been extremely successful for us. We have a goal of 30% for MyChart, and we pushed that information out information out through there, and it's really flexible. So we also have used Cape Cod Health News and the Pulse for Epic stories and MyChart stories that we've been able to push to this site as well, so our employees can see what we're talking about to the public. So it's very, very flexible. Very, very happy with it. What's next? Calls to action. Always back to the site. Health risk assessments, faux scheduling, our new world with Epic. We really don't have a CRM here, so the conversion funnel has always come to a hard stop because we can't get into our systems. Soon we hope to do that, and we'll be working on that to actually convert clicks into business. And finally, as we move forward, the idea of CRM and Epic integrated into this platform, into Cape Cod Health News, into our web, is very intriguing. And we'll be looking for ways to harvest Epic data, run it through our CRM, and promote it through our Cape Cod Health News and our content strategy. And it is all about content anymore. The transactional sites of the website are what they are. People will go for hours driving phone numbers, etc. But to engage them, particularly for us, put our physicians as experts. When you can come to here first, and if you need to go to Boston, we'll get you there. And we believe that content marketing through this very powerful system in CMS is really our way to go, and we've been pushing hard on it, and we've got some data to back it up. And as we move forward and get down the conversion funnel, I'm sure we'll be able to get more. So that's pretty much it from here at Cape Cod Healthcare. And thank you.
All right, and finally we have Matt McKinney from Cone Health to bring us home.
Thank you, Ben. Let me tell you a little bit about Cone Health first. We're an integrated, not-for-profit health system that covers about 5 counties in central North Carolina. We have 13,000 employees, around 1,300 physicians, 1,200 volunteers, and all providing health care to a network over 5 hospitals. We also have about 120 physician practice sites and numerous ambulatory care facilities, an ACO, and obviously operating in the virtual space. We're surrounded by academic medical centers on all sides of us, including Wake Forest Baptist, Duke, and UNC Health. So obviously there's some competition in the area. So what made us award-winning? Well, we won the Gold Award for Providers in 2019. So very recently, we had just come off a very thoughtful redesign. So that redesign journey began in about late 2017 with the rollout of a new strategic vision for Cone Health. The vision started with our commitments and our brand promise. That brand promise being, we are right here with you. And our purpose, we exist to connect healthcare and well-being. And our vision, a tradition of health and well-being woven into the fabric of our communities. That word fabric is a nod to our namesake, Moses H. Cone, whose denim legacy includes Lee and Wrangler jeans. So the philanthropy of the Cone family led to the health system we enjoy today. Our web design, as well as our external marketing campaigns, all were built off these strategic priorities. So as we think about that brand promise, we are right here with you. It really comes down to meeting the consumer where they are. Where are they in their journey to wellness? How or where do they want to be cared for? How do they prefer to connect with their healthcare providers? This means access had to be the front and center of our website design. That make an appointment you see right there in the center is a strong call to action. It leads the users to the care options that suit their needs, both in person and virtual. And well-being also became a central pillar of our website. We need to provide ways for consumers to manage their own path to wellness. We didn't jump into that web redesign without research and considerable testing. We conducted internal stakeholder surveys, including our leaders and physicians, to find out what they were looking for from a website. We held in-person and targeted interviews with patient experience, our innovation team, our physician leadership, and our virtual care team. We looked at heat mapping, consumer trends, all from the existing website, and we conducted user testing of a proposed information architecture. We knew it was important to utilize this user testing and analysis to ensure that our messaging and placement did not confuse users. We also wanted to provide a strong entry point to our wellness-based content marketing efforts. Now, this will be a common theme to what you heard from Lindsay and Patrick. we built what made us award winning. We built off that strong content marketing strategy. Our efforts in the content wellness space began actually a few years before the web redesign. You heard Patrick talk about, and Lindsay both talk about, a hub for wellness. Well, we started out as we originally had a blog, and that turned into a fully designed content hub with a variety of multimedia offerings. I'm happy to say we actually leaned on Avera a little bit for some of their best practices to get to this point. The full site design then became an evolution of what we had created with that content hub. It pulled together the commitment to connecting health and well-being that we outlined in those strategic priorities. So how did this foundation help us during the pandemic? Well, that's kind of an interesting story. In January 2020, we launched a new brand campaign that brought all the strategic priorities and that brand promise to life for the consumer. Interesting timing, huh? It was called the With You campaign. It included TV, out-of-home, digital, social components, and then the pandemic hit. The thing is, we had to pivot, and we knew we had a strong marketing foundation that would still work even as things changed. The With You language, that worked just as well for those staying home as those entering our facilities. We are with you during these challenging times. And if you recall the access to care points on our homepage, virtual care was already up front and center. We just had to make some enhancements and some additional entry points as services were stood up to help the patients as they needed it. Our content hub became a gateway to push out COVID-19 related information and position our clinicians as experts in that space. As others mentioned, we had a COVID-19 resource page, but the content hub also fed into that. One example, a Get the Facts blog on COVID-19 that was written by one of our infectious disease doctors, gained over 600,000 international page views. We had readers in the UK, India, Australia. We had another article on social distancing that hit 180,000 page views with a similar global reach. All the pieces we had in place, access to care, the content hub, it made it possible to accelerate the digital presence during the pandemic without totally having to blow up our website or other digital strategies. So what's next? What's next for Cone Health in the digital space? It's all about making those connections. We have the website as a strong foundation that we can continue to build upon. Currently, our teams in information technology, marketing, patient experience, and our clinical areas, we're all using lean strategies to connect the formerly disconnected pieces of the pathway to care and help with the patient access. Some of the elements of our digital front door strategy include call center acceleration, CRM efforts, which you heard Patrick talk about. That really will help us visualize where the consumers and our patients are in their journey. Virtual health improvements, MyChart enhancements, provider and locations listing management, and wayfinding. As we look to the future, we need to build on the momentum that has been gained through our content marketing efforts, through our web design, and our enhanced digital offerings. We want to engage our current employees and those are recruiting in the excitement of what's possible as we look to enhance patient care. We want to continue to turn towards consumerism and conduct research so we can understand the healthcare path to purchase in our community. We want to increase the focus on patients as people and not just a health record. We want to connect those gaps in the user experience, and we're going to do that through our digital front door. And most importantly, we want to continue to be right there with our patients, our employees, and the consumers as we take this digital transformation and digital journey into the future. I know that I went through that quick, but we want to get to some questions. I'm going to toss back to Ben.
Thank you, Matt. And thanks also to Lindsay and Patrick. Some incredible content, incredible journeys, and thank you for sharing your stories. I know we don't have a lot of time. I did want to sneak in at least one question. This has certainly been a journey for all of you. And I'd like you to think back to, over the last 5 years or 10 years, as you were starting this journey, what is it that you wished you'd known then that you know now? For those folks who might be early in their journeys trying to chart this path forward from a digital healthcare perspective. And maybe we'll start with Lindsay and we'll follow our same order through here.
So I guess I'd share two quick things. first of all, I'd go back to really working both with your consumers to understand what they want from you digitally, and then also to work with your leaders to help to share that message with them so that they know what consumers are looking for, because they'll support you ultimately with operations and things like that if they know what people want. The second thing I would say that I wish I had known as a journalist myself is how much the media world would shrink and how much user-generated information would have come to the forefront, because that is really changing our world so quickly that we have had to change our MarTech stack. We've had to really adjust our staffing to be able to keep up and support that want and that need out there. But what a beautiful time to be in public relations and communications and to be a storyteller. I mean, it really is a golden age for all of us. And so I think as healthcare people, we need to see this as an opportunity and seize this opportunity to really share great public health information with our communities and to help to move that ball forward together for how to live healthier and safer lives.
How about you, Patrick?
I wish I would have known the power of content marketing and brand journalism. We've done a great job with it, and we've got a great readership. But if I would have known what I now 5 years ago, what I knew then about content marketing, I probably would have changed the way we designed a website. It probably would have. I would have put more resources into it. My staffing might look a little different than it does now, but I wouldn't have changed having former journalists do the writing. That is such a difference maker, just how they're trained, how they think, and how they present that content in a non-sales and marketing manner. I wouldn't change that one bit, but boy, the content, and that's going to be the way to go. I mean, when you Google certain things on Cape Cod, you're getting 3 Cape Cod Health News articles first, and I'm okay with that because if they want to find out, how to get to our cardiology unit, they can find it easy enough. But to establish credibility through content marketing, I wish I would have grasped that concept earlier.
And you guys have been able to benefit from that shrinking media world quite a bit in access to some excellent former writers, former newspaper writers. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, for me, it's the partnerships. It's establishing the partnerships both internally and externally. It seems obvious, but in the last couple of years, my connection to our ITS department has been invaluable. Just connecting to our CIO and all of the skilled individuals in our IT department to help build that digital transformation. They've got the resources, they've got the understanding of some of the operational pieces to help connect the transition points between patient and clinician. And so by integrating the digital structure in the consumer facing places to the operational gaps we have, it's invaluable. And I'll add to the partnership, partnerships with patient experience, partnerships with our clinical teams to help us add expertise to our blog writing and our content delivery, and external partnerships. We have a great partnership with an external television station in our community to help. That's been invaluable during COVID. That's been our platform to say Cone Health is an expert in COVID-19 on our television partnership. So I'll say it again, partnerships. Just build those partnerships.
Thanks so much to Ben and our healthcare marketing panel for today's discussion. Did just want to reiterate a couple of the offers that we covered at the beginning of the webinar for you one more time. First, a reminder that our December webinar is going to be on building a cohesive digital design experience, and you can get registered for that webinar now by visiting geonetric.com/webinars. And last but not least, did want to remind you that the results are available from the 2020 Healthcare Digital Marketing Trends Survey, and you can get your hands on that resulting ebook by going to geonetric.com/2020 ebook. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we will see you all in December.